What is going on, YouTube? This is Jim back with another video here to give you guys my thoughts on Scarlet Nexus. Finally came out on PlayStation. We got a gameplay demo here, which I am running through right now. I played through both characters, although for the gameplay footage today, I'll be focusing on Kasane because I think she's a little cooler of a character, and as you guys know, I typically play as female characters. Is this game cool? Is this game worth checking out? Those are the questions I hope to answer for you guys today. But before I get into that, I would love for you guys to subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate your support. This game takes place in a weird future in which most people have some sort of telekinetic power. Now, the game refers to this as psychokinesis, and it is going to be one of your primary offensive abilities. It also kind of blends the story and the universe together as well. You play as a character from the OSF, the Other Suppression Force, and you are fighting these enemies known as the Others. There are different types of others you will encounter in the world. There are some that are flying, there are some that move really fast, there are some that are weak to fire, there are some that are bosses, whatever. You're going to be playing as a character who is part of this team, this OSF team. It's kind of like a squad where you are sent out on missions to go hunt down these others. And that's really the majority of the game. And the gameplay you're looking at here is what you can expect, at least from what I've seen from other preview videos and stuff like that. What makes this game so fun is that the combat is very, very fluid. Now, again, I'm playing as Kasune. Her primary mode of attack is these knives. She throws these knives out, and then they kind of come back to her, and she does damage that way. If you prefer somebody who does a little bit more up-close damage, there is a totally separate character, part of a totally separate squad. His name is Yuito, and he uses a sword. So right off the bat, you are presented a choice of playing two different characters that not only have different combat styles, but also have different support squads that they have to interact with. Since the OSF is such a large group of people, everybody's broken out into groups of 3, and depending on which of these two characters you play as, you're going to be on one of those groups. So you're going to meet and interact with totally different people. So it's almost like 2 games in one. Think of it along the lines of something like a Resident Evil game. Resident Evil 2 is a perfect example. As far as I can tell, both times you're going to be going to the same locations. The dialogue will be similar, but slightly different, obviously, because the support characters have different personalities. And it's the support characters, I think, that really drives this game so much, because you are going to rely on them quite a bit with what the game refers to as the SAS, the Struggle Arms System. And basically how this works is as you attack with your sword or your throwing knives, as I was using in this character, you're going to start building up these meters. These meters will allow you to do different things. On the bottom right-hand corner, that's the SAS. I have 4 different abilities mapped. On this character, if I played with the guy, I'd have different abilities there. These can be things like pyrokinesis, so imbuing your weapon in fire, or imbuing your weapon with electricity, which works very well depending on certain enemies. So, for example, if an enemy is wet and you hit them with electricity, you will do more damage than if you just hit them with electricity by themselves. There are other abilities, though, too, some that will make you invisible, which is great against certain enemies that like to kind of hide, or if you want to get behind them for like a back hit for extra damage. There's also other abilities like basically you double your speed, so you're very, very, very fast. It seems like everything's going in slow motion to you, which allows you to rack up a lot of hits. These are great against very fast and agile enemies. So you're going to be mixing up your standard melee attack or your throwing knife attack, which is kind of like that mid-range, with those SAS abilities. In addition to that, you also have, and as you see me panning around, you're constantly seeing R2 and L2 appear prompts all over the screen. You're going to be able to throw things at people, which is really, really fun. It's going to be loose things laying on the ground. It could be a car, it could be a box, it could be a pole, whatever. Sometimes you'll see with the L2 abilities, those are more like heavy-duty abilities. Heavy-duty items, like a tractor you saw me use a second ago, or like a big piece of a construction crane, or something along those lines. and those take time to charge up. That's that bottom meter in the center that's purple. So you gain all your abilities by your melee attacks, then you start to charge up. You can use some of your SAS abilities to kill an enemy faster, and then you can do, as you've seen me do quite a few times, but I'll highlight it here specifically, these kind of finishers where you do something very, very cool. It's a cutscene, usually has some sort of quick time event with it, whether it's a button prompt where you press a series of combinations or move the analog stick in a certain direction, and you'll be able to do massive damage to those, and that's usually a finisher on an enemy. Obviously, that will net you more experience, that will net you more rewards, and it looks really, really cool. It's not required at all. Think of that along the lines of like a fatality in Mortal Kombat. It's just an extra way to kind of punctuate the action. I really think this is a very fun game, and I think just the combat alone, if we just took everything out and we just focused solely on combat, if you were just a single person, if you were just playing only as Yuito or Kasune and you had no other support around you, I still think this would be a really cool game because it's fast and it's fluid. It's got a lot of really fun vibes to it where you are mixing up those melee attacks with those ranged attacks, where you're using your SAS abilities in combination with your finishers. And then on top of that, you're throwing, kind of like in Control, you're throwing any object you find around the world at an enemy. So it's a lot of ways to kind of layer on the damage. And I think it keeps combat very fresh and fluid, and there's many different ways to play. I suspect, obviously, as you get further into this game with the inclusion of skill trees and stat points and stuff, you can really customize your experience if you prefer throwing things more, or if you prefer more of the melee aspect or some of those SAS abilities that I mentioned. I see a lot of customization and fun in there. And again, if this was all the game had, I think I would be sold on that. But in addition, it has a phenomenal RPG element to it, where you're in a squad of other people that have different personalities. And not everybody in the OSF is friends. Particularly when you play with Kasune, you're going to meet these other people in your team who aren't really particularly happy that you're the new person and you're in charge. And they're going to be jabbering at you throughout the game. When there's some cutscenes that kind of set up the story. They're constantly talking to you as you're playing through things, and it's clear that they don't like you. That is a very interesting RPG element to it. So you're going to get to meet some cool characters and some cool personalities. Now, I didn't get to experience it in this demo, but I have read and seen other reviews where reporters have gone and played this for multiple hours. This game does include a bond system. Think of a game like Fire Emblem, where when you go on missions with people and you begin to talk to them and develop with them, they will grow to like you more. Doing so increases their SAS bond to you. So maybe the basic ability is like going back to the pyrokinesis. Maybe, and I'm just making this up, but it's a progression system. Maybe if you're just sort of friends with somebody, all they do is they'll set your sword on fire for maybe 5 seconds. I don't know. And then as you go on missions with them, that bond strengthens, and maybe you do double damage while your sword's on fire, and it lasts for 10 seconds. So there is a RPG progression system in those abilities on top of all the other things that you're going to acquire throughout the game on your own. And I think it's those two synergies that really help. When you look at this game, it really does borrow heavily against other games that have done a really good job of this. Like I said, and you've heard some of the names I've mentioned. You have that Fire Emblem element of the building with the teams. You have a Resident Evil aspect of kind of like two games in one. This feels a lot like Nier to me in terms of kind of how fast and fluid the combat is. And it has a lot of Genshin Impact because it has a very heavy JRPG, very anime-esque aesthetic to it, which I really, really like. So this is a hit for me, and I think it's going to be a winner. Now, specifically on the PlayStation 5, I have to say the integration of this game into the DualSense controller specifically is absolutely brilliant. Now, unfortunately, there doesn't seem to be a lot in the way of 3D audio enhancements at this time. They may come later. I played with 3D audio on, and 3D audio off. I didn't notice a significant difference in terms of the ambient noise, in terms of alerts or counters or any kind of noise you would hear in the world to kind of accentuate the experience. But with the DualSense controller, wow, did I feel a major difference. The way the controller pings and vibrates and buzzes, not only to let you know when your SAS abilities are ready, not only to let you know when your kinetic abilities are ready, like throwing things at enemies, but the impact that the enemies have when you actually slam things down and how hard the controller vibrates. The way that you can feel all the little pings and blasts around you in your controller, the way the electricity pulses when you're about to hit somebody. You can see here me turning invisible to try to sneak up on this enemy. You can see me using lightning imbue to kind of hurt this enemy a little bit more. You feel everything in the controller, and it is such an incredible experience, particularly in something like this. When I was using that ability where I was duplicating myself, and it was basically raining down throwing knives and arrows and stuff on that enemy, you feel each and every one of those in the controller. They feel like little pings of rain. They feel like little kicks, little vibrations. It is masterfully done, and I cannot say enough about how much the DualSense controller really amplifies this experience, really in the way that I think Returnal did, which I ranted and raved about how great the DualSense haptics and the motor and the feedback experience were in that game. You're definitely going to feel it in this game as well, and that is a lot of fun. I think for that, you know, when you look at this game, it's got great combat, it's got a great aesthetic. It has a good role-playing system with it, where you're going to meet different characters and work on, you know, this kind of like personality and these challenges together. I think is a lot of fun. Then you add in the DualSense, the fact that it runs at 60 frames a second, the fact that it loads almost instantly on a PlayStation 5. I think you're going to be in for a real treat. Now, I jump cut a little bit here because the demo is about 40 minutes long. I didn't want to go through all of the, you kind of got a taste of the combat. But I want to show you the kind of the final boss fight of here, and I suspect there'll be quite a bit of boss fights in this experience. Now, what makes the boss fight so fun, obviously, if it is based on an anime game, you're going to be fighting in some sort of arena. And if I guess there's any negative I have to say about this game, it's that the world does seem very basic. It's kind of boring and flat. But look at what I'm about to do. That same semi-truck, dump truck thing that I ran by maybe 15 minutes ago, I just dropped on this dude's head and took half of his HP away. In such a monumental physical show of force. Very violent, very raw, very visceral. I suspect you will see a lot of that in this game. I like that. I like that a lot. But outside, you know, of these monster impactful moments, these big fights, you do see the world does appear to be kind of plain and boring. It doesn't seem like there's a whole lot going on. And that seems like a little bit of a disappointment. I would have loved something a lot more akin to like a Division 2, for example. The world seems much more vibrant. There's lots of cars overturned and barrels and crates and enemies, and it feels more alive. This feels like just an abandoned playground where they're going to basically have you fight an enemy in this kind of boring arena where you run around and there happens to be the basic construction equipment just kind of floating around. I think I'm going to have so much fun with this game doing all the other combat and all the other things I mentioned. I don't think I'm going to care too much, but that's really the only negative I can say with this game. This is a total day one purchase for me. I can't wait to play it. And if you do play the demo, you will unlock something that you get some carryover progress. So keep that in mind too. I hope you guys found this video informative. Leave some comments below. Let me know your thoughts on it. Did you get a chance to check it out? Did you play it on the Xbox? Did you play it on the PlayStation? How good is that DualSense? Sound off below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side.